Be prepared, Brandon. That's all I have.
Was that in the movie?
That was in Lion King. That was a whole freaking song. You don't remember?
Honestly, no. I watched this like 3 days ago. I already forgot.
Yeah, for the audience that doesn't know, we had to push back our recording because of technical difficulties.
Yes, it was one of the World Series games, and my hypothesis is that everyone in LA was streaming it, and it made David's internet so bad that he couldn't even log on.
Or it was just Spectrum being Spectrum. But we'll let you guys decide. Welcome back to the Uncultured Pop Culture podcast. This is David as usual, joined by Brandon, who is doing I don't even know what.
Dancing with my head only.
For a second, I thought you were like mimicking me saying the opening of the podcast.
I was at first.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it turned into dancing. I was just seeing if I could throw you off your game or not.
You did. You made me laugh. So
that's pretty good. We're off to a good start today then.
Pretty much now I got to make you laugh during the course of this episode. And if I don't, then
I think that's possible.
I failed.
I think you can do it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
We've got a great episode for you today. We are covering a movie from the 90s, maybe one of the best movies ever to grow up with that I have never seen in my life. And we're covering Elton John, one of the... I'm not going to say it. I was going to say...
I think everyone can guess what you're going to say.
Yeah. Elton John, one of the coolest British people, maybe?
Certainly coolest dressed.
Very true. Yes. But now, what have you watched in this past week?
We've both been kind of talking about our top 10 lists of the year. Me for movies, you for music, obviously, for albums. What I decided to do, because it's been a very, very weak year for movies, at least the ones that I've seen, because, I've missed some. I decided to actually go back and catch up on the movies that I didn't get to see in theaters by going and watching them on streaming services. So I have one movie that came out in February, I believe it was February, that I watched on a streaming service, and another that I saw in the theater. And I'm happy to say that one of those went on my list, and that is the streaming movie. So I went back and I watched Companion, which is kind of hard to say what it is without giving away, a twist in it, a pretty important twist. I guess I'll just say it kind of is about love and companionship, but in a dark and very twisted way. And I really liked it. It was a 4-star for me. It wasn't blow my mind amazing, but it was still very good. I think right now it's currently number 3 on my top 10, which kind of shows you how weak, the year has been. But it's still up there right at the top, and I could see it being at the bottom of the list if the rest of the year is really strong. So we'll see. And then the other movie was a movie that I was looking forward to watch for most of the year, but also very apprehensive because it was Luca Guadagnino's new movie that got mixed reviews. And I am sad to say that it was not good. The mixed reviews were honestly not mixed enough. It was not good. It's called After the Hunt. I saw it with Jennifer in the theater, and we both agreed it wasn't very good. It was very... The whole thing kind of approaches the whole how would I describe it? Not culture war of today, but male-female relationship and the way that it's shaped today with Gen Z versus boomer, that all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't end up really saying anything, and it's all really muddled, and it's the kind of movie where you can tell that they thought that they were saying something with it, but they aren't actually saying anything. I don't know. It's just kind of a mess. If you're interested, go check it out. I just didn't like it. Jennifer also, I believe, didn't like it, although I'm not going to put words in her mouth. So yeah, kind of a good and a bad week for the 2025 list. And quite a sad week because, I love my boy Luca, and I'm sad to give his movie a 2 out of 5.
I did want to ask you, because there was another movie that came out in this past week, and that was Colleen Hoover's movie. I think it's Regretting You. Is that what it's called? Have you heard about this? And have you seen it / are you going to see it?
I've heard about it, especially because I kind of track box office. So I kind of know what's coming out every week. That being said, I did not watch it. I don't really have any interest in watching it. I know like last year, It Ends With Us made a bajillion at the box office, and obviously there was the whole stuff between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting because this movie is doing fine, but it's not like a big hit. Like it doesn't seem to be as in, the cultural like zeitgeist as It Ends With Us was last year. So yeah, I'm not gonna watch it, but I guess I wonder if anyone I know will watch it.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the audience reaction to it so far, but I have been seeing a lot of people say this is like indescribably bad. So I was just kind of wondering if it would be one of those movies where it's like it's so bad that you kind of want to see it. But I don't know if that was just like what I've been seeing people say, or if that's kind of the general consensus, is that it's like ridiculously bad.
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised. And then second of all, I enjoy like so bad it's good movies like The Room, and I can't remember any other ones.
Megalopolis.
There we go. Thank you, Megalopolis. But I'm like, if I go watch that movie, I feel like I'm going to lose brain cells. So I'm not even going to go bother.
It's looking like it's a so bad it's bad movie.
Yeah.
Like there's not even that like enjoyable part of it. I haven't heard anyone say that. I've just heard people say, I wish I could get that time back.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised at all. Like, of course it's going to be so bad it's bad.
That might be a fun one where you go to like an empty theater with like 10 of your closest friends and just like shit on it the entire time. But I don't know.
Probably good for like a watch party or something. I could see that,
Yeah.
Kind of like watching
A K-pop Demon Hunter style
yeah.
watch party.
That being said, what have you listened to this week?
So I got a lot to say. We're going to start off with Breathe by the Chainsmokers. There's an EP. It was okay. It was definitely not as good as their old stuff, and it was disappointing by their standards, I think. I'm somebody who likes the Chainsmokers. A lot of people don't, and it seems to be that the reception on this is actually a little bit higher than a lot of their other music that people don't like, that I do like. So that's, par for the course for me. There was an album that I said I was going to listen to last episode, and I did. It's called Everyone's Talking by All Time Low. That was the rock album I was talking about, and it was okay. It started off really strong, and I was thinking this could like be in contention for like one of my favorite rock albums. And then it just by the middle kind of just like sputtered out. And there's one song I actively did not like listening to. And then I was kind of like, well, whatever. And then it never really got back to where it was before. Like they have some really good pop rock songs on there. Like I'm not trying to discount anything that's on there, but it's like 15 songs. And I would say the middle, like 4 of them are just like nothing that I even remember listening to. So that was kind of boring. Then I had to bring up Baby No Money's self-titled album. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
He's a rapper, kind of like a meme rapper. Many people would call him a white rapper, but actually he is Canadian Armenian. So shout out to Armenia. And I got the reference, or I got the Armenia mention before you did this week, which is great.
You win this round.
And I had to put that on there. So, yes, so check him out because you might like him. He's kind of fun. A lot of people say his music isn't great, but he's a very nice person and he's always trying to uplift smaller artists. And he's like on the right side of politics and history. The correct side, not the right side, the left side, the correct side of politics. Those were all the ones I was going to talk about this week, except yesterday we had a surprise release. And since we got delayed by 2 days recording this episode, I was like, well, now I have to talk about this. This is a 4-song EP by the band Now Now. They last released an album in, I think it was May or June of 2018. I was in high school at this point. This is what I found them off of. And then since then, they released one song in the spring of 2019. And nothing for years. Until all of a sudden, last week, they posted this video on their Instagram, and it was just like teasing something. And then I check yesterday, and on a random Wednesday, they've released an EP, their first like body of work in 7 years.
That's crazy.
And let me tell you, It is incredible. This is on my top 10 list and is not going anywhere. These are 4 incredible songs. The first song is a return to form for them. Second songs are like experimental. And the and the fourth song is a 5-minute long masterpiece. Maybe one of their best songs ever. And yeah, so that was crazy and not something I was expecting. So we will be hearing more about this later, but I had to shout that out because, that's what happens when you delay the podcast by a few days. Something new comes up, something unexpected.
I was about to say, what a lucky week to move the podcast back.
Literally. So anyway, shout out Now. I am a big fan of them. They're another duo. I keep talking about duos for the past month.
They keep coming out
nonstop about all these duos releasing great albums or songs, and they're no exception. They're from Minnesota. Shout out Minnesota. That's I think the third artist in the past few months that's from Minnesota that's been releasing great music. So shout out Minnesota as well, just in general. That's what I got for you, but I do have a song as well.
Before you ask or you tell your song, I did want to ask you, did you hear that for the first time since the early 90s or maybe even 1990 itself, rap is not in the Billboard Top 100?
Not Top 100, Top 40, but yes.
Oh, Top 40. That's what it was.
Yes, this is February 1990. You had their year correct. It is crazy, and I think it speaks to 2 things. It speaks to rap's inability to create, I guess, young superstars that are doing anything interesting, because it's been years since we've had a new rapper break on the scene and be like, wow, this is really cool. I think the last example would be Ice Spice, and even then, she really has not done anything. Doechii last year, but she's not at that level where people care enough, probably because she's a woman, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people talking about, oh, rap is going the way of rock. It's dying. It's never coming back. I don't think that's true. And also, rock didn't go anywhere. It just sounds different now.
That's true.
But I will say, I think the real reason is kind of the political state of the country. Hip hop is a predominantly black genre. And I don't think people want to hear from black people right now, considering how much racist country is dominating the charts.
Yeah, so that's true.
It's a bunch of factors all coming together at the same time. And it's sad and scary. But it's not the end of rap, I don't think, but it is the end of this era of rap for sure.
No, yeah, and like you said, it's not like rock is gone. It's just different. I certainly don't think that rap is just going to disappear or something, even if it does just evolve slightly into something a little different. But yeah, it's definitely crazy, especially because, living in Los Angeles, rap is very prominent, but it is obviously you're living in a big, very liberal city, so it might be skewed a little here or there. But yeah, it's definitely interesting hearing that.
Also, we are kind of going through the breaking apart of monoculture in this country. We have been for a while, but it's been really breaking apart now. And you kind of just have to go with the small general public, which is probably about 30 to 40% of actual people who consume music are pretty racist and listening to country. So
no, it's definitely difficult because it's there are a bunch of small subsets or small groups of people instead of one large group. So it's kind of how do you get as many of those different groups as possible? It's hard.
Exactly. The whole global superstar thing and the rock and pop stars of years past, decades past, I wonder what that looks like now, because you have some of the biggest celebrities ever, and they're all people that I could not name who are on Twitch. And that's just not a world that I'm in, and I'll never know that. I know I Show Speed. I've heard of him. I think he's one of the biggest celebrities in the world. If I saw him on the street, I could not tell you who that was. I don't even know if I would know he's famous.
Me neither.
It's just a regular old dude. So, that is weird and also kind of scary as we're going through this period of immense change in the country for the worse. I guess I don't want to say change, immense decline in the country.
Yeah.
We're also kind of losing our stronghold on culture and global culture. America is not the dominant soft power force that it used to be.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy.
But with that, My New Music Friday song of the week is called Do You Hate Me by Fan Club Wallet. This is, I don't think she's a band. I think she's one person, but I don't know. Anyway, she's from Canada. Shout out Fan Club Wallet. I think her name's Hannah. And she released an album. This song was on the album, but it was in New Music Friday. And I wanted to talk about it because it was the song that I heard this week. And I was like, this is the one. This is the one that I'm adding to all my playlists that I'm like, this is the one I want to talk about. It's like kind of understated indie rock, which weirdly we've been doing pretty well with indie rock this year. There's been a lot more of like, I guess, melodically interesting indie rock projects. And this one is no exception. I think this is very fun. And once again, if you like supporting smaller independent artists, highly recommend. So yeah, Fan Club Wallet is her name. Shout out Do You Hate Me?
Hell yeah.
Hey, do you?
Of course.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping. Yeah, I'm sure you hate me because I forced you to listen to Elton John this week. And you know what? I don't even know if that was me that was forcing you, because I think you said we should do The Lion King. And then we were like, well, we have to do Elton John with The Lion King, you know?
You gotta.
And 17 songs later, here we are.
I'm very interested to hear of what you think of my scores.
Interesting. Okay. I'm kind of excited for this. I have no idea where this is going to go.
This should be very fun.
This is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the 7th album by Elton John. It was released October 5th, 1973 by This Record Company Limited and DJM Records, and then MCA in the United States. This is a double album, in case you couldn't tell, and it actually consists of 4 sides. So there's side A and B on, I guess, part 1, album 1, and then album 2 has sides C and D, and it gets very confusing. And it's technically not even that, because they're numbered sides, and they're not even, like, they're not lettered sides. So it's side 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Why do they do this, man? I don't get it.
I do not know. This is also our first piano rock album. This is a new genre for us. It is what would be considered pop at the time. This is not really considered pop anymore because it's rooted much more in rock. Although there are elements of pop in it. I don't want to say there aren't, but it definitely does fit more into the rock realm. There were 4 singles released from this album, 2 from side 1 and 1 from sides 2 and 4. None from side 3, interestingly, which we'll talk about when we get there. Is it the worst side? Potentially.
We'll see.
That's what I'm hinting at, sorry. 2 singles preceded the album, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting in June of 1973 and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road in September. And then Benny and the Jets was released on February 4th, 1974, and Candle in the Wind was released February 22nd, 1974, so only a few weeks after. And now, I wanted to ask you, what do you know about Elton John? And did you have an opinion on his music before we listened to this album?
I grew up with a little bit of Elton John, and that's why I was wondering if you would be surprised by my scores, because I feel like you really hate Elton John. So I actually kind of grew up with a part of this album. My parents would sometimes throw on a song here or there from this album. It wasn't ever like, oh, we're going to listen to the whole album or anything like that. But there were like 3 or 4 songs from the specific album that I knew from just listening to it in the car or something like that. And there are songs that I like, not to spoil it. And then, of course, I've heard some of his other, famous songs, stuff like Rocket Man, stuff like that. And I enjoy those songs too. Ultimately, I am not like super into Elton John. His style is not my favorite. Overall, I think it's fun. It's fine, but I'm not particularly drawn to it. That being said, I do feel like there are songs on this album that maybe work for me quite a bit, just because like there is a nostalgia factor. And I do feel like this album has maybe some of his best music out of all his discography. Although I also think it has some pretty bad songs too. Not to spoil it.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. I'll leave it at that.
I have a guess on which one that'll be, Jamaica Jerk Off. Anyway.
Yes.
I did want to ask you that because I figured you had known some of these songs, and you said 3 or 4 of them. Were they the 4 singles by chance?
Yeah, pretty much.
I figured. Those are like his big songs, you know?
And there's a reason that they're singles.
Exactly.
I did actually want to throw that back at you, though, because I was wondering if you had ever listened to Elton John before, listening to for this episode.
Yeah, similar to you, I kind of grew up with his music, not like a lot. My parents used to listen to the oldies radio station all the time around here. And my dad also likes some of the songs from this album specifically, so he's played those for me a few times. I've never really connected to his music much, but that'll be a conversation for the end of the album, I think. I am familiar with him. Like you, I know a lot of his hits. And then I was also exposed to, the remix. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the remix of Tiny Dancer. I think it's called Hold Me Closer with Britney Spears. That would play at the place I worked in LA all the time, like multiple times a shift. And I hate that song so much with a burning passion. So yeah. So anyway, that's the other thing I know about him, but he seems like a nice guy. And he's a fashion icon too. He's in the realm of like David Bowie and Prince, where it's like he's more than just a singer and songwriter and performer. He's also like an icon, where it's like you're looking to him as something larger than life. He's a superstar, I guess is what I want to say.
Well, there's also the fact that I think he's on his like 4th or 5th like goodbye tour.
Yeah, I think it's been the same tour that keeps getting extended. And it's like, this is it, guys. This is it. On this album, all of the music was composed by Elton John. All the lyrics were, of course, written by Bernie Taupin, his songwriting partner. And all of the songs were produced by Gus Dudgeon. And I assume the album was mixed and mastered by Gus Dudgeon, because that's usually what a producer does, especially in the olden days. It would be you have the producer to do those certain things. But unfortunately, I cannot find any information about the original release of this. It's been like remixed and mastered for other releases, but I don't know who originally did it. So I'm going to assume it's Gus Dudgeon. So shout out to him. Most of the instruments were done by the Elton John Band, which consists of Elton John, David Henschel, Davy Johnstone, Dee Murray, and Nigel Olsson. And then additional instruments on the album were performed by Ray Cooper, Del Newman, David Katz, Leroy Gomez, and Kiki D. I think your favorite on this album will be either Candle in the Wind or I've Seen That Movie Too. Now I'm kind of rethinking that second one. It is a ballad, which I know that you like, but I think the nostalgia factor is going to play in, so I could see it being Candle in the Wind over that, because I'm assuming that's one of the songs you knew.
That was, yeah.
I didn't write this down, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say your least favorite song is Jamaica Jerk Off, because I think that's an okay choice for the worst song on the album. I'll say that.
Yeah, I agree.
But let's get into it with side 1, track number 1, Funeral for a Friend / Love Lies Bleeding. That's hard to say, actually.
It is, yeah.
Funeral for a Friend, there we go, was written to be music that Elton John would want at his funeral. That's what he said about it. And you know what? I can see it. It feels like a haunted vampire, kind of, when it starts out. It's like, it's almost perfect for Halloween.
It fits with the vibe.
It does, yeah. This is a note both for the song and for the album. It's so much more rock influenced than I thought / remembered it being. Like, I thought this was more along the lines of like pop, but there's a lot of rock elements in here. There's quite a few electric guitars too. I was surprised by that. Funeral for a Friend is probably my favorite song on here. I would give it a 2.5. So that kind of indicates what my scores will be. Love Lies Bleeding is fine, but it is also way too long. And the double song combined of the two of them could have ended at 8 minutes and it'd be a 2.5 for both of them, but instead it's a 2 for both of them, because Love Lies Bleeding is fine, but it's just like, I don't need 3 additional minutes of it. This is a note I wrote at the end that I said, now that I've finished the album and come back, is this a little bit of Bruce Springsteen effect? Funeral for a Friend is very different from the rest of the songs on here and also doesn't have any singing. So it honestly might be a Bruce Springsteen effect where it's like, I don't like the rest of the album and the song that's most different is the most interesting. So I don't know. That was something I had thought, but now it's your turn to talk about our first 11.5 minute long song. I think that's how long it is. It's one of the longest ones we've done.
First of all, I hate when they combine 2 songs together. Just going to throw that out there. I know we kind of talked about this before, but please stop doing that. It annoys me, like on a personal level. That's the first thing.
I agree. Because then you can't add one of them to a playlist. Like, you have to listen to both of them.
And what if you don't like part of one?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. A Coldplay song on one of their albums, the first song on there is one of my favorites that they've ever done. And then the second song is the worst song on the album. And it's just kind of like, whatever.
The whiplash. But that being said, I was very surprised by, the spooky feeling of Funeral for a Friend, the kind of the wind and the, synth and all that kind of stuff. Took me aback because I did not remember the song at all. I fully feel like my parents just like chose the songs they liked and just ignored the rest, which honestly, listening to this album, I kind of support. Not going to spoil anything else. But yeah, I was very taken aback. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's not something I'm particularly interested in listening to on repeat or anything. In some ways, it kind of reminded me of a worse version of like a Pink Floyd song.
I definitely got that vibe as well.
It just felt like it's not the same. Pretty much it's not the same. But then Love Lies Bleeding came in. And it's also just boring. It's more boring to me than Funeral for a Friend. I'm just like,
I agree.
I don't need it. You could have gotten rid of it, and I honestly feel like Funeral for a Friend would have been a little stronger by just being shorter. And also it kind of fits not having singing. But ultimately, both of these together, like, I didn't dislike them on a different level. I feel like they're both ultimately a 3 to me, because it's not terrible, it's not bad, it's just kind of whatever. I would ignore this song, to be honest. I would skip over it in a heartbeat.
All right, we're off to a good start here.
And it's too damn long. I'm sorry.
It is really long, yeah. And like, Funeral for a Friend isn't necessarily too long. Love Lies Bleeding is. And even if you chopped off the last 3 minutes of Love Lies Bleeding, this still should not be 2 songs combined into one. Like, it shouldn't be one track. I agree with you. I like it in like a physical CD or like a record. If you're going to do it, it's like, oh, it's cool for it to be one song. On streaming though, I feel like the primary mode of listening to music isn't necessarily albums anymore on streaming.
You should have the option of listening to them separately, at the very least. Even if you're going to try and like present them together as one song, please at least like have an option to listen to them separately.
I think the other thing that's very interesting about that is if you break them up into 2 separate tracks on streaming, you get double the amount of streams. Because if you're going to listen to both of them anyway, like for the 11 and a half minutes, you only get whatever that is, 0.0001 cent. But if you get 2 songs, you get 0.00002 cents. So it's like, maybe it's better to split them up. And maybe that's why we don't see double tracks or hidden tracks anymore, because streaming has taken over, which is kind of sad in a way, because I do love a good hidden track sometimes, especially like when you're listening on physical media and then you're just like, oh my God, there's another one here.
When it fades out and then it fades back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm speaking mostly with CDs. That's what I grew up listening to. So like, especially when you'd be like watching it count and it just keep counting up. And then it's like, oh my God, the song isn't over yet. And it's still counting. There must be something else here. That's always a cool feeling. Anyway, track number 2, Candle in the Wind. The song peaked at number 11 in the UK. It was ranked number 347 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs. Now, there is also a 1997 version of this song, which was a tribute to Princess Diana. This one's obviously a tribute to Marilyn Monroe. The Princess Diana version of it, Candle in the Wind 1997, peaked at number 1 in basically every single country in existence. It was huge. It was way bigger than this version of it, but we didn't listen to it. I don't know how it is different. I don't think I've ever actually heard the 1997 version. I've only heard this one. But I do have a quote here from Bernie Taupin in Rolling Stone. This is about Marilyn Monroe. She is absolutely not someone I admired a lot as a kid or anything. She was just a metaphor for fame and dying young, and people sort of overdoing the indulgence, and those that do die young. On the song itself, he stated, I think it's one of the best marriages of lyric and melody that Elton and I have ever put together, but it doesn't change the fact that I wasn't particularly enamored by Marilyn Monroe. I thought that was a hilarious quote, because he's just like, yeah, I've read this song, but I don't really care that much. Which, whatever. This song to me is a big whatever, and I'm fine never hearing it again. This is my least favorite type of song on the album, and one of my least favorite types of songs in general. This is a 1. I hate the song.
That's a very, very hot take.
Not a surprise really for me though.
So, this is not my favorite song of Elton John's. That being said, it is up there. And yes, this is one of the songs that my parents would put on. That being said, when I was listening it this time around, I realized that I do actually have a little bit of a quibble with it. And there's a reason why it's not my favorite. And that is because I do kind of feel like the music in it is a little bit too much. It kind of feels like it needs to be a slightly softer song. It feels a little bit too full, if that makes any sense. That being said, I still think it's a really, really good song with some great imagery in it. It's still a 4.5, but it could be even better and get up to that 5 if it was just a little bit quieter.
That's an interesting note because that's something that I kind of talk about later in the album is I think the mixing on this is awful.
Yeah.
Almost the entire album, all of the music is way too loud and you can barely even hear his voice at sometimes. And it's like he's a vocalist. Like I get he's a pianist as well, but I think of him as a vocalist first. So like you also want to be able to hear his voice. And I don't know if that's a product of like the way we used to mix, but I also didn't want to say the drums sound really good on this album. Like they're perfectly mixed, also well played, but like obviously his piano sounds good, but it's not mixed as well even. So I don't know, it's just weird.
Did that stop you from fully enjoying the piano?
It did a little bit, but also like he's obviously a good pianist. It's just not my style as well. So this one's a 4.5 for you and a 1 for me. Pretty good split there. We're getting back to our old ways.
A very good split. It's kind of feeling like the good old podcast again.
Literally, yeah. We're disagreeing like we should be. And here's another one for us to disagree on. Track number 3, Benny and the Jets. This one was released as a single in February of 1974. Elton John did not want it released as a single, but the radio station CKLW in Windsor, Ontario played it and people loved it. Now, a little cool thing about Windsor, Ontario, in case you don't know, in case our audience doesn't know it, it is across the river from Detroit, Michigan. So all of the media in Canada can be seen and heard in the US and vice versa. So it's one of those melting pot points where the two countries kind of come together and they can influence each other. And because it was also in the Detroit market, it was a huge hit in America and people loved it. And they would call up the American stations to start playing the song. And then the other American stations, of course, started listening, seeing what they were doing in Detroit and saying, we should probably add this Elton John song to our regular rotation. And it turns out it did really well because it went number 1 in both the US and Canada.
That's really cool.
And interestingly, it does not appear that it was released as a single in the UK until 1976, 2 years later. And it only peaked at number 37 in the UK. But Rolling Stone ranked it number 371 on the 500 greatest songs of all time. And I like to think that some of that is because of CKLW, you know?
Go Canada.
I did not realize that the actual version of this song is like a live recording type deal. I don't think it is a live recording. I think it's like made to sound like one because it's mixed too well, I guess, for being a live recording at the time, you know?
It sounds too clean too.
Yeah, and I honestly, I have to say, I like a good like fake live recording sometime. We talked about it on To Pimp a Butterfly. Kendrick had that song. I think it was like the second to last song that sounded like a live recording. It was really cool. This one did not work for me as a live recording. I feel like this song deserves like a real studio version because I think it is a really interesting song. However, it is very one note, which I also didn't realize hearing this on the radio for some reason as kind of like background music while you're driving in the car. It's kind of like, it feels like it punched more, like it was like there was more to it. And unfortunately, it is actually kind of just a whatever song to me. I don't really have any praise for it, except for the like synth organ solo kind of thing that they have going at the end. I think that's pretty fun. This song is a 2. It's fine, but I feel like when I was going into the album, I thought I was going to like it better because I thought it was better. But what do you think?
Whenever I listen to the song, including when I was a kid, I would start out listening to the song thinking, oh, I remember this song. Yeah, it's just like the other ones. And then you would hear the audience and I would be like, oh, wait, that's right. It's live. So I kind of grew up confused about this song, even though I do kind of feel like it is obviously just recorded and then the live effects are kind of added in. There's no way that it's this clean from a live recording. Like I feel like people couldn't get it this clean even nowadays. That being said, I've always enjoyed this song. It's never been one of my like all-time favorites, and I do think that it goes on for too long, which is something that I'm going to say a lot today.
That's fair. I agree with that on most songs.
Yeah, it's solid. It's fun. It's not my favorite. I also think it's more listenable than a lot of the other songs on this album, though. And I also just got to say, Benny 3.5.
I was expecting you were going to like this song a lot more, but I mean, I think that's a fair assessment of it, though. It feels like it should be better than it is.
Yeah, it's fun, but it ultimately isn't anything more than that.
Now we move on to side 2 of the first album of the double album, whatever. Side 1 only had 3 songs because the first one was over 11 minutes long, so it kind of takes up too much space and when you're putting them on a vinyl. Anyway, side 2 begins with track number 4, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the title track. This is the highest rated song I have. I have to say it's not my favorite because I do think Funeral for a Friend. I keep doing that. I do think Funeral for a Friend is my favorite, but because it's a double song, it doesn't get it's not able to be rated in that way. But this song was released in September of 1973 in the UK and October of 1973 in the US. It peaked at number 6 in the UK, but it peaked at number 2 in the US and actually went number 1 in Canada. So kind of an interesting thing where it did better across the pond from his home country. I do have a few things to say about the song. Most notably, it'll take you a couple of vodka and tonics. It's a fine song. There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm also fine never hearing it again. That being said, I do think this is the most inoffensive song, kind of the most average song on the album. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to turn it off. It's just, it didn't capture me. This is kind of the perfect example of a 2.5, in my opinion, a textbook example.
This song was my favorite growing up. And coming back to it, it does hold up. It's still up there. That being said, it's not my favorite song. And I feel like even though in some parts it is quite a bit quieter than Candle in the Wind, I feel like it has kind of the same issue where it feels a little too loud when it comes to the mixing. That being said, I feel like it's a title track for a reason. It's so damn catchy. And I also noticed with this song just how fast Elton John gets into his choruses. Every single song, he gets into the chorus within the first 20 seconds. And then he starts in on the verses and all that, which I thought was really interesting because I feel like that's not something you see anymore, really. That's not the style, at least, that's being done now. That being said, it's a 4.5. Again, there was kind of the issue of it doesn't feel the best when it comes to the mixing, but I still think it's a really good song and really catchy.
Is a 4.5 the highest you go on here?
A 4.5 is.
Okay, interesting.
I don't think any songs are perfect, even though I do think that some get close.
Track number 5. This song has no title. The transition from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road to this song, I think is pretty fun, and I almost didn't catch it at first. It just flows in perfectly. He sounds, I think, kind of Irish in this song. I don't know why. His accent is just kind of going crazy in here, and I was like, it almost doesn't sound English anymore. It's there's something more going on here. I think that this song is kind of in a similar vein to ABBA, where it's very theatrical. This is the one I wrote the note on. Although I feel like Elton's music is more focused on how to deliver the lyrics instead of how to deliver the melody.
That's
which
interesting.
Is kind of the difference between Swedish music versus typical Western music. And that's kind of why I gravitate towards that Swedish pop more. I think the album in general is like this, and specifically songs like this almost border on a rock opera, which I have never really been a fan of and also was not expecting really in here. It's very theatrical, but in a way that feels like it's made for the stage almost.
Yeah,
not even
for
a movie. It's just, I do think it's nice because it's shorter and it kind of gets in and out, and I have no problem with that, but it is still a 2 because I do think it's worse than Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
I agree with you. I do think this song is a step down, and that's something that I always thought even when I was a kid. I was always oh, this is good, but not as good. It is on the shorter side, which is nice. I do like that. But ultimately, it's a 4. I think it's a good song. It works well, even if it's not a particular favorite of mine.
Track number 6, Gray Seal. I am not sure if he's trying to do an American South accent on this, but it does not work, whatever it is. Also, this song has multiple key changes, and I hate it. It's 1.5. This is just whatever. It's a forgettable song.
Yeah, it's very blah. It's too repetitive and too long. It's not like the worst thing ever, but it gets very annoying after a while. It's a 3. I could see it going even a little like lower if I kept on listening to it though. I also don't remember the song at all, so I honestly feel like my parents just never played the song. Which hearing it, yeah, I can see why. I also would not.
Yeah, there's not much to it. It's just kind of like, it's whatever. And some of these songs, in like looking back at my scores, I'm like, it wasn't that bad. And I did that on the first time I listened to this album, and I went back and listened to it again, and I was like, no, it actually is that bad. Like, it's just not interesting. So I'm going to stand by these numbers, even though in the moment, again, I'm kind of like, well, it can't be that bad. But then it's like, well, you listen to 17 of them. It's like, after a while, the Kesha effect really starts to set in, which, hint, that'll be coming up. Anyway, we got a real stunner to talk about. Track number 7, Jamaica Jerk Off, 0.5.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck was going on with the song. It's kind of also like, it's hard to hear what they're singing about, so it's kind of hard to tell just how bad the lyrics are, both in terms of like just how bad they are as lyrics, and also just how bad the content is. I don't get what the hell they were thinking with this, to be honest. It's a 1. Probably should be a 0.5, a 0, I don't know.
Yeah, it does feel a little like hate crimey.
It does.
At some
The thing
point.
is, like, the song itself without the lyrics would be like a 2.5. So not good, but but with the lyrics, it just tanks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big reggae fan, but I especially don't like when British white guys are making reggae. Like, it doesn't need to exist for any reason.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you one thing, and then I did have another thing to say about the song. But I wanted to ask you, is this the lowest you go? Is this your least favorite, or is there another one that's just as bad?
Oh, this is my least favorite for sure. This one.
I do think there is another song that is almost as bad as this, but we'll get to that later. And I did want to say that I can't find any information about this song and why it exists and what its purpose is. But I also don't know what that would actually change for me, because it's kind of like it exists no matter what. I don't necessarily need to know what they were thinking to know that it's bad, but it's more of like a morbid curiosity of like, what were they thinking? And then I also assume, I didn't look this up, and maybe somebody can email us at upcpod@gmail.com or leave a comment on our episode. I assume that jerk off had the same like connotation in the 70s that it does now, which also like raises more questions for me than answers. Like, obviously you call somebody a jerk off like when they're like an idiot, but also like the other connotation of jerk off, like either one of those is bad. Like, because one of them's racist and then the other one just like is bordering on racist, and it's like, I don't know, it's weird. And then they also list in the credits, I think it's Reggae Dwight, which is Elton John's name is Reginald Dwight, and then I don't remember what Bernie's nickname is, but it's something where it's like, I don't know, and they're credited as backup vocalists. Like,
it's not good. This
is in contention for one of the worst songs we've ever heard on this podcast, and I was not expecting this album to have one of the worst songs ever.
I was not expecting it either, and now I'm kind of like, there's a reason my parents didn't put on the back end of this album.
Track number 8, I've seen that movie too. I said Candle in the Wind is my least favorite type of song, and I think this one is very close to it. It's more of a ballad about something instead of just a general look at the state of world kind of lament. But this song feels more rooted in like blues, and where it's more like you're singing about the blues kind of. And in theory, it should be something that I like more, but it also just doesn't capture me. And then here's where I say my note. What is going on with the mixing of his voice? I get that we didn't understand how to do that in the olden days, but like, what the hell? It's really hard to hear in some songs, and this one feels like he's shouting the lyrics from a different room. Also, this song is way too fucking long. I was debating making a 1.5, and then I realized I still had well over 2 minutes of it left. So I made this a 1 because I was like keeping it consistent with Candle in the Wind. I don't want to hear this again. And it is just like, there's too much of it. If this was like 2.5 minutes, it's like, okay, I can see the case for it being a 1.5, but oh my God, I couldn't do it.
You want to know something funny?
It's your favorite.
This is my favorite song. You were right. I love this. I think it's a very beautiful song. I also think you have some of the best piano in the whole album in this specific song. That being said, I do think that this song is too long. And I think the guitar solo is actually unnecessary. And it kept the whole song from being a 5. So I do completely agree with you. That being said, I think the rest of the song is really, really good. Without the guitar solo, it would have been a 5. And that part of the song is my favorite part of the song. I just wish that it didn't have that, because it just, in a way, it feels like it almost ruins the song for me. Still my favorite song on the album, and still a really beautiful song in my opinion. It's a 4.5.
That is the end of the first half of the album. Now we move into side 3 with track number 9, Sweet Painted Lady. I only have a few things to say about this song. This song is misogynistic in a way that we don't get anymore. Like, I guess it's about prostitution, but it feels gross, and it feels like they're saying it's her fault and like almost slut-shaming her for being a prostitute. This song does not need to exist in any form, although I do think this is one of the songs where his vocals sound really good, sadly. Like, he sounds like a great singer in this song. It's just the lyrics are really bad, and I don't like the way it sounds. This is a 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. The content is definitely like not the greatest. When I came across the title, I even looked up what it was about, because I was like, what is it about? And I saw that they, said it was about prostitution. Again, just not the best like subject. The song itself, I think, in terms of the music, I think is nice. I like it. Just in terms of the production, it is a 3.5. It's just that the content is not that good, It is very misogynistic, which kind of put me into a conundrum of like, what do I rate this song? Ultimately, I decided to just rate it musically and try to ignore the rest, but I'm still honestly kind of stuck. I don't know what to do.
I get your problem here, because I do think musically it's not that bad. For me, the lyrics are something I can't ignore because I think his vocal performance is good, so I'm like focused on that.
Yeah, which I agree. His vocal performance is really good.
I will say, though, that there are other songs about prostitution that are better and not like misogynistic like this, at least not to the extent.
That is very true. I guess I'm going to throw it to the fans. How should I rate it? Let me know. Email us at upcpod@gmail.com.
Well, I'm a fan, and I think you should make this a 3.
I'll do that.
I did also want to remind everyone that we are in side 3. This is the side that had no singles released from it, and I can see why. I will say that, not to spoil the next few songs, but this is the weak part of the album for sure.
Yeah. They should have just gotten rid of this side, to be honest.
Track number 10, The Ballad of Danny Bailey, 1909 to 1934. We continue the trend of some of the worst mixing of vocals I've ever heard. This is better than the last song, but that is not saying much. This is the best song on this side. It's a 1.5 for me.
I had never heard it before. This was one of the ones that my parents just didn't really play. I do think that it's in many ways forgettable, and it does go on for too long. That being said, weirdly, there were just parts of the song that worked really, really well for me. So again, I was kind of in a conundrum, as I kind of like was all over the last part of this album. Like the last part of this album, just honestly, my reaction was, what the hell is going on? I'm kind of stuck between a 3 and a 3.5. I kind of was thinking of 3.5 just because some parts of this do really work for me, even though as a whole, it's just very fine. And I think I'm going to keep it there. It works and it doesn't.
I would say this one is more of a 3.5 and the last one's more of a 3. You don't have to like listen to what I'm saying, but in my mind, I do think this song is like slightly better than the last one. And I agree with you that there were parts of this song where I was like, oh, this could be a 2. Like it could go up a little bit more, but it's still like eh.
And I mean, I am keeping it at 3.5, I think, ultimately. I realized I didn't say that. I forgot to answer my conundrum. But yes, I am keeping it at a 3.5.
Track number 11, Dirty Little Girl. I want to read just some lyrics here for you. I'm going to tell the world you're a dirty little girl. Someone grab that bitch by the ears, rub her down, scrub her back, and turn her inside out. This song is like Sweet Painted Lady, and in a way it feels worse than any of the Bruce Springsteen Little Girl stuff that we have. I get why there were no singles from this side of the album. This might actually be worse than Jamaica Jerk Off. This is like hard to listen to for a different reason. Jamaica Jerk Off is musically like, oh, this is it's weird. Who knows what it's about? This song feels like disgusting. Like I could feel my skin crawling when I was listening to this. I hate this. This is a 0.5. This is disgusting. I don't know why this is on here.
Yeah. It doesn't work for me. I mean, okay, obviously in that aspect, it does not. It also just doesn't work for me that musically. It feels like it was kind of going for this hard rock vibe, which it doesn't really work. Like, I'm sorry, bro, but please stick to like pop rock. Like that's what you're best at. And then of course, yes, like this is very hard to listen to. It's even just hearing the title, like, or seeing the title, I was like, wait, what? Like, what? Excuse me? It kind of reminds me of, oh gosh, I don't know if you've ever heard the band Oingo Boingo. You know about the famous song called I Like Little Girls. Yeah. It's like that, where you're listening to it and you're like, how the hell is this an actual song? I had trouble like listening to this song, kind of similarly how I had trouble listening to Jamaica Jerk Off because of the content. So ultimately I was like, I'll just give it a 1. I don't know. I don't care. I'm moving on because I don't want to listen to this. This is probably a 0.5. This is probably a 0. I don't know because I barely like listened all the way through. It's also 5 minutes long. Why? I think I'm going to give this a 0.5.
Sounds good. I do think this one should be a 0.5 because it is like bad, which would make this worse than Jamaica Jerk Off for you, I think, right? I think that was a 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. This song really is kind of like, oof. Anyways, we got one last song on this side of the album. Track number 12, All the Girls Love Alice. At this point, I don't remember when the Kesha effect set in, but I am currently playing solitaire while listening to this album, and that is not a good thing. I have a lyric from the song, "What do you expect from a chick who's just 16?" This is a Bruce Springsteen-ass song, which is derogatory, of course. I think more than ever, this is from 1973. ABBA's music was from the late 70s. I do think that they kind of started the 17 thing, honestly. Like, we'll keep listening to music and we'll see what happens, but there's a big part of me that thinks, he's a girl that's just 16. I get like maybe it flows a little bit better in the cadence, but I don't know. 17 is sounding pretty good for ABBA right now. I will say that this is an improvement over the last song, but once again, that doesn't really say much. This is a 1. I still do not want to listen to this.
Why is it 5 minutes again? Why are all the songs 5 minutes? I wanted to talk about it specifically musically because it's a weird song. It's like 2 different songs. This did not really work for me either. This slipped into 2.5 territory when it comes to the music. After like the last little run, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pay attention to the music. So musically, this is a 2.5 because it's like a whiplash, and there are parts of the song musically that I liked, but it just doesn't work.
Now we move into side number 4, the final side, with track number 13, Your Sister Can't Twist, but She Can Rock and Roll. This song sounds like if the Beach Boys made a parody song of themselves. Also, why is she only 16 again? Another point in favor of ABBA being 17. And the carnival organ in the bridge of this song was not necessary in any way, but at least it's fun in like a novelty song kind of way, where this song doesn't feel serious or real or good. It's a 1.5 because honestly, I would rather listen to this than like most of the other songs, like most of the previous songs. It's not good though. Like if you want to listen to this song, it's like, why just listen to the Beach Boys then? Like, I don't know.
By this point, I was tired. I'm just going to throw that out there. There are too many songs and too many long songs. And yeah, it's not a bad song. It's fine. Like I'm sorry, but it's just not really interesting to me. Again, I don't think this specific style works best. And I also wrote on this note that they tried everything, but then forgot to take out the parts that don't work.
That's a great note.
It feels so bloated. It's a 3. Honestly, should be a 2.5. I think by this point, my brain was totally scrambled by just how many songs there were. So I was having trouble. Like, I was having serious trouble. This should probably be a 2.5.
Moving down the home stretch of the album, track number 14, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. This was the lead single, released in June of 1973. It peaked at number 12 in both the US and Canada, and this one actually did better in the UK. It was number 7. I don't necessarily have anything to say about this song, positive or negative. This is the second song with the sister being mentioned, second song in a row even, and I find that relatively interesting, I guess. At least this song has some like hard rock elements to make it more memorable than most of the other songs in the album. Ironically, the Kesha effect is still extremely strong despite it sounding like something else. And it's probably because this song, like many of the other songs, is way too long. This one's a 1.5 as well. At this point, I just don't really care and don't want to hear any of the songs ever again.
It isn't sticking. It feels like in the second half, honestly, second 2/3 of this album, he was just trying out different styles and they were all kind of unsuccessful. Because it feels like he's trying to go for a harder rock here again, but it just feels kind of loud and without melody in a way. I think he should stick to pop rock because I think he's genuinely good at that. This is a 2.5. I don't really like this. It doesn't work for me.
I mean, I guess you could argue that this is one of the most pop rock songs on the album because of the like heavy guitars, but I know what you mean. I think piano rock. It's all kind of the same at some point. There are like different types of songs that he does though, and this is not one that I think is very good. Track number 15, Roy Rogers. I don't hate every ballad, but my God, they sure do make it easy sometimes. This is a 1.
I think this is fine. It's, country, you got the twangy guitars. I think it's still boring, but then again, I think it's an improvement over, a lot of the songs that came before this one. It's blah, but at least it's a 3.
Track number 16, second to last song. We're getting there, people. Social Disease. I said maybe this is a good song. I can't tell anymore, and I don't have the energy to listen to this again. Something that I've noticed on the album is that the drums are played and recorded very well, so at least that's nice. I did mention that earlier, but I knew I wrote it down at one point. This is it's a 1.5, which is kind of like the score I'm going to default to this album because I don't want to hear it again, but it's not like the most offensive thing I've ever heard. But ultimately, it's not good, in my opinion. So, 1.5, whatever.
Okay, why is this turning into like a country album at the end? Like, I don't get it. So it just randomly became country, and he also like started singing with like an attempt at a drawl and saying y'all and stuff like that. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I don't get it. I don't get why. It's a 2.5. It could be a 2 to be honest. But honestly, at this point, I was so like conked out that I was just like 2.5, moving on. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought the second time listening to this album, I would be like, oh, I can make it through. I can pay attention to the like side 4 essentially. Not really. It wears you down.
It does. It really does.
It's weird. It's a strange listening experience. And it's so interesting that a lot of the times when we're listening, like separately, we have different backgrounds as we've talked about. We have a lot of the same reactions, like 2 albums overall. Like this is how it feels, even if we have different things to take away from the album or songs. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I agree.
Track number 17, the final track, Harmony. I have nothing left to say at this point. 1.5.
Harmony, I will say, did feel a little bit closer to me to like the classic quote unquote Elton John sound, if you will. And I was kind of like, okay, thank you. That's at least something to go out with. Again, it's just fine. It's not anything special. It's a 3. So kind of ending on like a little
Yeah, this whole album, it in a way, you get a little bit of that Maroon 5 effect where it's like first half is better than the second half. But for me, it's not that like that much of a difference because it's all just kind of like blends together because there's so much Kesha effect on here. And I'm surprised that I didn't say more about that because I just feel like that is kind of one of the themes for me of this album is it just blends together at some point. I will say overall, this was about as bad of a listening experience as Prince's album. And I figured why not give them the same exact score, which is a 1.5 out of 5. This is one of those albums that is ranked so highly in like greatest albums of all time. This is like, we said we had to do Elton John for The Lion King, and I chose this album because this is his best album. That's what everyone says, much like 1999 with Prince. And I'm starting to think that people are just wrong. Maybe this one has like his best singles, which I guess you could make an argument for. I haven't heard like all of his music, so I can't really make a judgment there. But it's, oh my God, it's so long. It's like the Prince album. It's just, this one even had 6 more songs than the Prince album, and they're about the same in length, which is just insane to me. Anyway, I don't like this, and I don't want to listen to it ever again. And I think 1.5 is a pretty adequate score for that. It's not bad. Musically, there's some nice moments in here. Lyrically and vocally, there's some decent moments in here. But it's just, it doesn't capture me at all. And I get that I'm rating all this old music a lot lower. And it's not because it's old. I'd like to stress that again. It's just that this is not something that catches my eye in with the things I look for, which of course is melodically and then also just production wise all around. It's very thin to me. There's only a few instruments and they're not using them exceptionally well. And then also you have the mixing issue of just, it just doesn't sound full or lush at any point in the album. So yeah, 1.5 for me. I am very curious to see what you rate this album though.
Yeah, I had trouble because the first part of this album, I think genuinely, if it was by itself, would be a good album. It would be probably like a 4. That being said, because of how many songs there are and the quality of the last like 2/3 of the album, this album just becomes a bloated mess. To be honest, I don't understand how they themselves didn't realize that they should just get rid of like most of the songs and make it like a 10-song album, you know? I don't understand. Yeah, I'm in a way quite sad because, again, like there are songs that I really, really like and I think are really beautiful, but after listening to the whole album, I feel like I kind of forget about how good those songs are because of the overall experience. That being said, those songs did kind of help keep the overall average, I guess, up. Like it kind of saved at least a little bit of the album, and it stopped it from going down to like a 2. Thanks to, you know, my 4.5s and like my 4s, it kind of stays at a 3, but even then it's very close to like going down just because of how bloated and messy and just bad so much of this album is. It's too much, it's too all over the place, it's too weird at parts, and ultimately a lot of the songs here are just boring. I can see why my parents only played like the first part of this album, because that's what the album should have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I am very curious to look back at your Prince score. I have a feeling it's a 3. Actually, it might have been a 3.5 because I feel like you said like you can hear the artistry, which is also something we haven't really said this episode.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about how you can like hear the talent of Elton John, which I do want to say he is very talented. Like, don't get me wrong there.
He is, yeah.
The music just doesn't connect with me. And I do think that is some of the Prince effect there, where it's just ultimately not going to be for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I feel like if I were to go back, I would maybe lower it because there is this sort of idea that I have of, oh, if this person is like, everyone says this person is great, even if I don't like it on the first time, maybe when I come back, I will understand it more. I feel like that honestly wouldn't happen with me coming back to 1999. So it would go down most likely. That being said, I feel like here it would stay at a 3 just because of, you know, there are songs that I do genuinely like, even if the overall album is just a hot mess.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And to me, this is one of those examples of like, I mean, I can talk about how I see the artistry and how I respect an artist. I don't think that necessarily changes how I feel about the song. It might with some of my favorite artists of all time, where I'm more willing to like overlook some of their missteps, I guess, which I don't know, hasn't been happening for me lately. I'm kind of just like, this is a bad song. I don't even want to listen to it anymore. But I do think that if this album was released by Reginald Keith Dwight, which is Elton John's real name, it does change something where it's like it suddenly stops being one of the best albums of all time because you don't have that name and you don't have that idea that this is one of the greatest musicians to ever do it. I don't know. I feel similarly about the Prince album where it's like I feel like the artist is doing a lot of the like heavy lifting on the album, like the artist's name, I guess, more than any of the songs or I guess the sum of its parts. It's more of the look what it could be. And to me, I don't really factor that into my ratings, which is, why I'm low.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was Elton John. I don't think I necessarily need to ask you if you're coming back to any of these songs that you rated lower than the ones that you said were good. So, I mean, we already know that I'm not coming back to any of them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of about it for Elton John. I mean, we'll probably listen to him again in the future because he's got a lot of hits. He's a very influential and important figure in music. And of course, he is a pianist. So I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for anyone who plays the piano and like makes that into a whole major aspect of their career. But yeah, this went about how I thought it would. When we planned out this episode, I thought it would be a little bit better. I was thinking 2 on the album, but this was the episode that I was looking towards this season that I was going to be like, this is probably the lowest scores I give to both an album and a movie combined. But on that note, let's talk about the movie.
So we are talking about Disney's 1990s Disney Renaissance film, Lion King. I don't know why I introed it so long this time, but I did. We are first going to jump in with the IMDb logline, as usual, and I want your opinion. So here it goes. Lion Prince Simba and his father are targeted by his bitter uncle who wants to ascend the throne himself.
Interesting. That's a lot more simple than I thought it would be. I guess it does do the main conflict, but I feel like there's a little bit more missing. I don't know. I'm not a super fan of that one.
I don't like this logline. It tells you like that could be like so many stories. Like it doesn't tell you what this story is.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
I don't like it.
It tells you the conflict, but it doesn't tell you any of the like beats of what actually happens. Because we spend time there, but we also spend time with Timon and Pumbaa and the story of Simba and Nala. That's her name.
But yeah, now that we're both in agreement about the IMDb logline not being very good, let's get into the credits. And oh boy, you are not ready for what's going to come right now.
I am so excited for the story section. Story by I saw that I counted the number.
Okay.
And, oh my God, it's so good. Because the best part, like I knew this from looking at the Wikipedia page, but then I was waiting for it in the credits too. I wanted to see how small everybody's names were. And boy, were they small. They had to put them on a separate screen.
Pretty much for any audience members that have no idea what we're talking about, you'll find out in a second.
Oh yeah.
So here goes. The movie is directed by Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff. Produced by Don Han, not 100% sure how you pronounce that. Written by Irene Mecci, again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Jonathan Roberts and Linda Wolverton. Oh God. Story by, here goes. Barry Johnson, Andy Gaskill, Kevin Harkey, Tom Sido, Rick Mackey, Bernie Mattinson, Lorna Cook, Gary Trousdale, Jorgen Klubine, don't know, sorry. Larry Lecker, Ed Gombert, Mark Kausler, Thom Enriquez, I don't know, again. Jim Capobianco, Chris Sanders, Joe Ranft, Francis Glebas. That is literally longer than any list of like starring I've ever done. Any list of actors I've ever done. We'll see why in a second. And on top of that, it's an animated film where it's kind of more like a group of people developing the story. But still, that's a crazy list.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming most of those people are like storyboard artists that obviously like contributed to the story. But like, oh my God, is that a lot of people? Also, I wanted to say, this might be an insane thing. I feel like we've talked about Jim Capobianco before as like somebody in the credits, and I feel like it was Ratatouille, but I don't know for sure.
The reason why you remember his name is because he was a writer slash story supervisor on Ratatouille. So you were right, it was connected to Ratatouille. And he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Ratatouille in 2007. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Good for him. That's pretty sick.
A fun little connection. Yeah.
He stuck with Disney.
Moved to Pixar when they were having success, pretty much. When Disney was not having success, or having less success in the early 2000s. But we will also see that a part of that list is not just like writers slash story editors or storyboard artists. It's also just that there were a lot of drafts of the script. So the movie is edited by Ivan Blanquio, music by Hans Zimmer, distributed by Buena Vista Pictures Distribution, which of course is now known as Walt Disney Studio Motion Pictures, and stars Matthew Broderick, Jeremy Irons, James Earl Jones, Moira Kelly, Nathan Lane, Ernie Sabella, Rowan Atkinson, Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, Jim Cummings, and a lot of other people. There's a large cast. And we will also be talking about the fact that you have different actors performing the singing voices. Now, there are two different stories when it comes to how the first idea for Lion King came to be. Same way that there are now two different Lion King movies, one good and one bad from all accounts.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Just throwing out judgment immediately.
I haven't seen the 2019 movie, and I don't plan to. That's all I'm going to say. The first version of the story, when it comes to how this idea was ideated, for lack of a better word, in my brain right now, the story goes that the vice president for creative affairs at Disney Animation, Charles Fink, conceived of the idea of, quote, Bambi in Africa, end quote. So that's one version of where the idea came from. The other version says that Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the chairman at the time, who of course would then have a big fight with Mike Eisner and go on to create DreamWorks. And of course, we can't forget about Quibi. But the other version says that Katzenberg was the one that came up with the idea and reportedly said that the film was, quote, a little bit about myself, end quote.
Yeah, he lost his dad to a stampede in Africa.
Yeah, a stampede. Regardless, what followed afterwards was kind of a stampede of multiple treatments of the film that were brought on by writers including Thomas Disch, D-I-S-C-H, apologies, Jenny Tripp, Tim Disney, amongst others.
Tim Disney? I get like Disney's a name,
Tim
but
Disney.
it is giving Tim Apple from Trump's first term.
Yeah.
Of like, I think he just called the guy Jim Toyota, the president of Toyota. It's something like that. He's in Japan right now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it was just, I just immediately was like, Tim Disney. Okay, anyway, continue.
Hi, Brandon Uncultured, or Brandon Pop Culture, or Brandon Podcast.
Exactly, Brandon Podcast. I like that a lot.
The idea, the treatment that was written by Jenny Tripp was the one that first introduced the character of Simba. In this version, he gets separated by his tribe, is brought up by a baboon and a mongoose before battling an evil jackal and reuniting with his pride. So that was kind of the first basis for the film. Eventually, writer J.T. Allen was brought on board, and he developed a new treatment that actually had the title The Lion King. So, of course, that was it. Nope, it wasn't. Because, of course, not. It's Hollywood, guys. They brought in Ronald Brass to punch up the script. And he created a new version that was titled King of the Beasts. So, of course, the next writer to work on it was Linda Wolverton, who was working on Beauty and the Beast at the same time for Disney. And she wrote a new version following Ronald Bass's version. And this version involved a battle between the lions and the baboons, who are led by the baboon titled Scar. It also includes Rafiki being a cheetah and Timon and Pumbaa being Simba's childhood friends. So it's like variations on pretty much lions and baboons this whole time. The baboons just keep coming back. I don't know why.
This is crazy to see how it just like changed and like morphed into everything. Because like pretty early on, I mean, I assume there's still like 7 more drafts to go. I don't know for sure, but
Pretty much.
it seems like pretty early on they were able to figure out like the rough idea of like what they wanted. But yeah,
Yeah.
this is already crazy.
Yeah, it's like the rough ideas are there. It just everything around them is just constantly changing. That's kind of how it would continue for a little bit too, because they were also kind of going through directors and duos. They eventually settled on the duo of Rob Minkoff and Roger Allers, and they kind of wanted to change a lot of the script. They worked on a story and they even traveled to Africa to study and understand the environments. And of course, when producer Don Hahn joined the production, he was like, okay, I want to change the script because it's unclear and the theme is all over the place and it's unfocused. So eventually he started working with them too to rework the script. And while they were reworking it, several important changes were made, which included Mufasa coming back as a ghost, Scar and Mufasa being brothers, and Rafiki being kind of a comic relief character instead of this like wise hermit or something like that. And also, they changed the title of the script from King of the Jungle back to The Lion King because it's set in the safari. There are literally no jungles anywhere, so there's no reason for it to be called King of the Jungle. Now, they take this kind of more finished version of the script to Michael Eisner, who was, of course, then CEO of Disney, and he said that it, quote, could be more Shakespearean, end quote. Michael Eisner is, of course, also the guy that would ask his teenage son for advice on how to run the company. More on that in the future, probably in an episode. The team liked this idea, and they seized upon it, and they drew both from Hamlet and from various stories in the Bible. And they kind of knew that they should bring in a new team of screenwriters to add some punch-ups. Of course, you got to bring on some new writers. So they started looking around for someone to come in. One person that they considered was Joss Whedon, who probably would have bullied a bunch of people and sexually harassed a bunch of people. Eventually, they settled on Irene Mecci and Jonathan Roberts, who revised the script and fixed a lot of its unresolved emotional conflicts. And we're done with talking about the script finally, like after all that. When it came to casting, a lot of actors were chosen for their distinct vocal characteristics. Obviously, James Earl Jones, because of his very powerful voice that in some ways almost could like be a lion's roar. Nathan Lane originally auditioned for Zazu, and we have another little connection to the birdcage, to a prior episode. And he was auditioning while Ernie Sibelius was auditioning for one of the hyenas. And the directors asked them to audition together as 2 hyenas, and they made the directors laugh so much that they were promptly cast as Timon and Pumbaa. For the hyenas, meanwhile, the directors came up with this idea to reunite the comedy duo Cheech and Chong. The problem was that while Cheech Marin was up to being one of the hyenas, Thomas Chong did not agree. He was like, nope, I'm done. So they eventually ended up changing one of the hyenas and casting Whoopi Goldberg in that role. So Whoopi Goldberg's character of Shenzi was originally supposed to be voiced by Thomas Chong, which, hey, kudos to them for changing it to like a female character, especially considering that she kind of leads the hyena pack. For the role of Scar, they considered quite a few actors, including, and I do want to know if you know any of these actors, but I'm also going to be throwing out my opinions on these ideas. But the list includes Tim Curry.
Never heard of him.
Who would have been amazing. Malcolm McDowell, who I think would have also been good.
Never heard of him.
He ironically played the Dr. Loomis in a remake of Halloween. So,
oh, wow.
Another little connection right there. Someone else who was considered was Alan Rickman, who would have been freaking awesome with his voice. I hope that you know who Alan Rickman is.
I have heard of him, and I feel like if I saw him, I would know who he was, but I don't know why.
Patrick Stewart was also considered, which I don't really see, but okay. You might know him from Star Trek The New Generation.
Definitely do not.
And of course, Ian McKellen was also considered, who you saw in Lord of the Rings as Gandalf. So you definitely know him. And I think he would have been pretty good too.
I definitely know who Ian McKellen is. Honestly, yeah, I like that.
1 out of like 7.
I assume all of these people are British, but I don't know.
Literally all of them are, yeah.
That's such a Disney thing to cast the villain as British. I don't know why, but like it seems like they often do, especially in this like Renaissance era Disney stuff. It was like always a British, like shrouded in mystery kind of figure.
What can I say? These, when your villain is British, he just seems more villainous,
It's true because the Brits are villains and everything.
Exactly, Connor.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be Ridley Scott. Anyway.
Moving on. Anyway. Eventually they did settle on Jeremy Irons, who I think is perfect for this role. Like his voice is perfect for this. The rest of the cast was rounded out with the likes of Matthew Broderick as adult Simba, Jonathan Taylor Thomas as the kid version of Simba, Rowan Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean, or Blackadder if you love British TV shows from the 70s, as Zazu, Moira Kelly as adult Nala, and Nikita Kalame, apologies again if I mispronounce your name, as Kid Nala. And I also do want to mention that Joseph Williams, Jason Weaver, Sally Dworsky, and Laura Williams provided the singing voices for the adult and kid versions of Simba and Nala. Now let's talk about the animation. Because, as it turns out, most of the animators at Disney did not have faith in Lion King, and they actually preferred working on Pocahontas, which was in production at the same time. I bet they regretted that when they came out. And as Don Hahn has said, quote, "The Lion King was considered a little movie because we were going to take some risks. The pitch for the story was a lion cub gets framed for murder by his uncle set to the music of Elton John. People said, what? Good luck with that. But for some reason, the people who ended up on the movie were highly passionate about it and motivated," end quote. So it worked out in the end. Ultimately, more than 600 animators, technicians, and artists worked on the film, some in California and some in Disney and the Disney Hollywood Studios theme park, because there are offices there, or at least were at the time. Incidentally, the 1994 Northridge earthquake also occurred during production and prompted some animators in Los Angeles to work remotely. Knowing that they wanted to capture the animals realistically, of course, aside from the fact that they're talking, the character animators actually studied real animals, and this included bringing lions into the studio and taking trips to the Miami Metro Zoo. The look of the film was also influenced by movies like Lawrence of Arabia and films of John Ford, which we will have to watch. As art director Andy Gaskill has said, quote, "We wanted audiences to sense the vastness of the savannah and to feel the dust and the breeze swaying through the grass. In other words, to get a real sense of nature and to feel as if they were there." Now, computers also played a part, particularly in the Stampede scene. Of course, this is the heyday of 2D animation, but 3D CGI animation was on the rise. And for the Stampede scene, computers were used to allow animators to create several base wildebeest that could then be digitally multiplied and then given randomized paths to make their movements through the scene appear to be real and unstimulated. Because with 2D animation, it would have taken literally too long to create that scene. Even with a team of animators and technicians working with the computers, that 2.5 minute sequence took more than 2 years to create.
That's ridiculous.
It looks really good though. Now, I did want to talk about one more thing before we get to the release, because it's important, and that's the music. Now, lyricist Tim Rice had worked on previous Disney movies, such as Aladdin, and he had collaborated with Alan Menken, who of course wrote the music for like 90% of Disney's movies during the Renaissance era. Menken was unavailable, and so that's why they brought in Elton John. And he was intrigued because he was like, oh, I can write pop songs that are for children and adults. So he agreed, and they wrote, Circle of Life, I Just Can't Wait to Be King, Be Prepared, Hakuna Matata, and Can You Feel the Love Tonight, among several others that actually got cut. And I believe some of those are in the stage musical. As for the score, they asked Hans Zimmer. And he promptly turned them down because he was like, I am not interested in working on kids' movies. He eventually changed his mind, partially because he wanted to make a film that his daughter could actually watch, because it wasn't violent or had sex and stuff like that. And secondly, because when he found out what the story was about, it became very personal to him, because he had lost his father as a young child, just like Simba did. I mean, not just like...
Yeah, not in a stampede.
Exactly. Now, there's one more thing that I wanted to mention before talking about the film's release. And I think this is a good example of playing the long game. Jason Weaver, who sang Kid Simba's songs, who he provided the singing voice for the kid version of Simba, was initially offered a $2 million flat fee by Disney. His mother, because of course he was a kid, saw the potential of the film and turned it down, and instead negotiated a deal where he would be paid $100,000 and royalties. Of course, this seems crazy. You're getting a lot less money. But because of how successful this film was, he ended up making so much more money than $2 million. So guys, sometimes it's worth it playing the long game. Now you might ask, how successful was it? Well, when it came out in 1994, during its initial run, it grossed $763 million. It would eventually make 979 with re-releases. But that's crazy. It was the highest grossing animated film at the time, the highest grossing Disney film at the time, and the highest grossing movie of 1994. Which some people might say you don't see that anymore, but last year Inside Out was the highest grossing film too. So, and of course that became the highest grossing animated film of all time last year. And even though a lot of those milestones for The Lion King got passed recently, or not recently, but through the times, it still remains the 5th highest grossing film of the 90s, which is kind of crazy. It also received acclaim from critics, although some noted it wasn't as good as Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, which I will say, I do think Aladdin is a little bit better. Just throwing that in there. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. And this was at the 67th ceremony. It got nominations for Best Score and 3 Best Original Songs. Those were Circle of Life, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, and Hakuna Matata. And it would go on to win Best Score and Best Song for Can You Feel the Love Tonight, giving Elton John and Hans Zimmer Oscars, and Tim Rice. Now, I did want to mention that there was no Best Animated Feature category at the Oscars at the time. And that's why it wasn't nominated there. But with the claim of the Renaissance era and Pixar's, animated movies making a big splash for being the first fully CGI movies to come out, public outcry did lead the Academy to make the category. But that was in 2002. The first animated movie came out in the 30s. So it took them 70 years. Of course, Lion King is a classic now. It's considered one of the best animated films ever made, and arguably is like the most popular out of the Disney Renaissance films, or one of the most. And of course, it was followed by sequels and a stage play, which was also critically acclaimed and grossed $8.2 billion at the box office worldwide. That's right, billion with a B. It's the most successful musical ever.
Ever?
Of all time.
That's
literally.
I did not know that. That's crazy. Well, I contributed to that.
Yeah. And believe me, I'm going to ask you about that. Of course, the film was followed by a remake in 2019. It was a photorealistic CGI film, which is still animation. Some people say it's a photoreal film. It's not.
Yeah, I've heard this referred to as the live action Lion King film.
Yes.
Live action is not animation. This is an animated movie. So hate to tell you, it's not live action. When I heard they were making a live action version of The Lion King, I thought, how are they going to do the costumes for that? It's going to look stupid. Well, it turns out that they didn't have to, because it's not a fucking live action movie.
It's idiotic. That was, of course, directed by Jon Favreau, and it was very divisive.
It had our boy Donald Glover in it, and John Oliver. Shout out.
It did. Shout out. I support them even if I don't support the movie. And of course, that actually became the highest grossing animated film ever, though that was topped by Inside Out 2 last year, which I'm very happy about. But it did make 1.6 billion.
Thank God.
Thank God, really. Guys, check out the YMS video on why it sucks.
Lion King, the remake, made 1.6 billion as well.
Yeah.
I did not know it made that much. That's insane. I was thinking it was like just over a billion. Holy shit. This is like, I didn't even know how successful this was. It is probably good that I finally watched it.
It's crazy that the remake made 1.6 million. Billion. It's sad that it like made more than the original, but it's kind of crazy that both the original and the remake became the highest grossing animated films at some point in time before they were beat by other films. Like, it's kind of crazy how, I guess, consistent it is, but that shows you how popular it is. Which, speaking about popular, I gotta ask you, had you ever seen The Lion King before?
No, sir, I have not.
Now, I knew that. I wanted to throw that out for the audience. And I wanted to ask you before I asked the next question which is, had you seen the stage musical before? And did that at all influence how you watched it this time or your experience watching it this time?
Yes, sir, I have seen the stage musical. I saw it, quote unquote, on Broadway in Wisconsin because it toured with the Broadway cast, of course.
Nice.
Pretty much all of the major touring plays have come to my small town area because we have a beautiful, gorgeous performing arts center. So I saw this there. This was sometime in COVID, I believe, when it was touring. And I was really impressed. I didn't think I would like it, but it's very well done. And there are two things that influenced the way I watched this movie. The first one was I remember loving the like costume design and character design of the Broadway play. So I was looking at like how like kind of the characterization in the movies or the movie, and it was good, but I think what is better is kind of the animation of everything else. Like the way that the movie looks and those, like you mentioned, the wide open savanna shots, and you have kind of just the world that it's in look so nice. And I think mixed with the music, it is very cool. It creates a very nice feeling. Now, the other thing I will say is in the Broadway play, you mentioned there were other songs in there. And I, when I was watching this movie, thought, it feels really short and like we're missing a big chunk of what I thought was happening. I don't know if this is correct, in the Broadway play, I feel like we spend way more time with Timon and Pumbaa and we spend less time focused on Scar. I don't know if that's correct or if I'm just like remembering the parts that I enjoyed of it or what. But I, in the movie, was thinking that we were going to have so much more time with Timon and Pumbaa. And I thought like it took a long time for them to get introduced. Like, there's almost a lot of backstory. And for me, I think that's my biggest complaint with the movie is the story feels like its scope is too big and it's almost too rushed. I feel like the Broadway play did it better. Like it slows it down a little bit and it narrows the scope and it just makes it feel, I guess, more impactful.
Well, I mean, you're right that the songs that were cut from the movie are in the stage musical, and that includes a song. I don't remember what it's called, but it's pretty much just Simba with Timon and Pumbaa like experiencing the world, I believe, from what I've heard. So you're right there. Ironically, I believe that there's also a Scar song cut out, though, in the movie that's in the musical. So it's kind of like you spend more time with both Scar and Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah, that very well could be. And I could just be misremembering this because it's been, whatever, 4 or 5 years probably at this point.
Yeah, and to your point about the movie being like short, that really, I feel like, is probably a thing that comes from this idea that, oh, kids don't have attention spans, which I think it's idiotic. If it's good, they will watch it. Like, I watched Lord of the Rings as like a 5-year-old, and I wanted to watch the full 4-hour cut of Return of the King. Like, I would have watched the full thing. If you make something that's really good, then I feel like even kids will watch it. Yeah, they might get a little tired, but they're still going to get invested in the story. This idea that like kids have a short attention span is something that I've always like disliked. If you teach them like media literacy and how to have a long attention span by making movies for them that are normal length, then they will develop that. And that's something that I've always hated. Like, I adore the movie The Emperor's New Groove, and it's like an hour and 16 minutes. And I always feel so sad at how fast it ends because I just want to stay in that world. But of course, they made it for kids, so it has to be short. So I totally get what you mean with The Lion King. I grew up with this movie, so I feel like I've become so used to it, I don't notice how short it is. That being said, you saying that like does make me think about it, and I'm like, yeah, it could be padded, like it could be developed more in areas, and you could have that added time to just add to the world.
I liked your rant there because it felt like what I've been doing recently, where I kind of just get pissed off by something, and I enjoyed that. I mean, this isn't even like related to the movie necessarily, but I agree as well. It's like we don't have to like change everything for kids. Kids are people too, and they know more than you think they do. I mean, there's a lot of debates right now. I mean, we're in Halloween time when we're recording this, and there's a lot of talk about Halloween is being ruined because the kids aren't like allowed to be kids, essentially. Like, you know, you're going to go ding dong ditch a house with your friends. Oh, wait, they have a Ring doorbell, and now you're getting arrested at 9 years old or whatever.
Well, I was just going to say, it's even stuff like, oh, go out with your friends like a block to go candy. It's like, no, we got to like get a team of parents. We got to do this. We got to do that. Which obviously, like, if you're not in
we got to trunk or treat.
Yeah, we got to trunk or treat. I'm like, that destroys the whole purpose of Halloween. Like, the fun is going out with your friends, walking, talking while you're going from door to door, like comparing what you got. Like, yeah, it's bullshit in my opinion.
I like how this is kind of a rant for us about like just Halloween at this point, but it like ultimately it does.
Yeah,
I do mean for it to like make a broader point about how, you know, kids are smarter than people think they are. I mean, we were kids not too long ago. I feel like by the time I was like, I don't know, double digits in age, I was kind of like pretty self-aware and kind of knew my place in the world and what was expected of me. And I feel like everybody's just forgetting that the older they get. I don't know. It's strange. So I agree with you. This movie should be longer. And that's the point of our stories. Anyway,
to that point, I think a reason why this movie, in my opinion at least, works so well and remains so popular, as do, you know, most of the Disney Renaissance movies, is because, you know, yeah, they were short or shorter because they were still kids movies, but they didn't talk down to the kids, and they treated the, you know, kids as like people that wouldn't understand stories and stakes and like characters. And I think that's ultimately why those movies are still so popular and so nostalgic and have such a big impact on people, because they treated you as a person when you were a kid. They didn't talk down to you, so you connected with it.
I think the best example of what you just said is the fact that most Disney adults are in their 40s right now and would have grown up with these movies, treating them as kids like they're actual people who have lives. And I think that's kind of how you build that brand loyalty that we still see. I mean, I think I've talked on the podcast about knowing Disney adults, both older than me and like around our age. And it is because of the respect that they're getting from the media that they're consuming. It's like, it makes you feel important. And I think that's a great point. And you know what, Disney, I think you kind of need to start doing that again if you want to have another Disney Renaissance, because they're not doing it right now. Pixar is, but
I was literally about to say they found the magic sauce and then they lost it, because that's like not what they're doing at all. And ironically, I feel like now they're eroding their, you know, Disney adult base because they're doing like the opposite. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. Now that we've ranted a little bit, I don't honestly have any other questions, because I think, I don't know, it's a pretty like clear movie. So I just wanted to kind of throw it to you and hear your general thoughts.
well, my general thought is this is a musical. I talked in Mamma Mia about how I'm not a fan of musicals and that movie would probably be pretty high up in the musicals. And I can tell you that this one is lower than Mamma Mia. I don't think there's necessarily too much wrong with this movie. It's short, like you said. I feel like it suffers because of it being short sometimes, that we can't get as much character development or time spent in certain situations with characters. Like it feels it moves very fast. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it would improve the movie overall if it just slowed down. Like literally adding 10 minutes to this, I think would improve it a lot and might even be able to make it go up by like 0.5. So that aspect of it, I don't know. There's a few like kind of life lessons in here that are kind of like, okay, yeah, like I get it. They're a little too explained. I mean, it is a kid's movie, so like it makes sense, but it's not done in a way where it's patronizing, like we've talked about. It feels honest, it feels genuine, and it feels true to the story that they're trying to tell. So as I was watching this, I was trying to think, what am I thinking overall? Like what brings this to any specific number? And there wasn't anything that I could really point to, which means it is a 2.5. I think there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing super amazing about it. I think if I grew up on this, I would probably be a little bit more nostalgic towards it. It might be a 3. But ultimately, I feel like this is just a good movie, an average movie that I'm glad I watched. I don't really need to watch again. Maybe if I have kids or something, like, or if I'm babysitting my sister's kids or whatever, and they'll want to watch a movie and we turn on The Lion King, it's like, that's okay. I'm fine with that. It's not bad. It's all right. And now I've watched it and I can say I have.
So unlike you, I did grow up with this movie. This was one of the VHSs that we had with Aladdin and Mulan and a couple of others. And I don't know, this movie is really interesting to me because overall, I think it's good. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it. But ultimately, it feels like parts of this movie I love, and then parts of this movie are just fine. And for instance, I think that, the part with Timon and Pumbaa, I always enjoyed that part, but around that point, I would always kind of be like, okay, when are we getting to the next part when I was watching it? Same thing when kind of like Nala finds Simba. So there were like parts of this film where I was kind of like, just like, okay, when are we going to get to the parts that I like really love? And those include stuff like the stampede scene, which to this day is, in my opinion, one of the best like animated sequences ever put to film. Stuff like, the visuals, stuff like Scar's song, Be Prepared, for instance. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is I like this film. I think it's a good film, but there are things that kind of keep it from being up higher, even though there is some aspects of it that I think are absolutely amazing. And that's ultimately why it is a 4. I think if more of the film was like the stampede scene, not saying that it has to be like the same level of tension or anything like that, but just to that level, it would be a 4.5 or maybe even a 5, and it might have been my favorite Disney film. But ultimately, I feel like parts of the film are stronger than the whole film itself. That being said, it's still a 4. It's still good. I still like it, and I'm always up to watching it, which is, I'm sure, partially, at least, to my nostalgia, but partially just because I think it's a good movie, and I can see why it's so popular.
I probably should have guessed it would be a 4. I was thinking 3.5 in my head for you, but you do get that nostalgia factor that like kicks it up that extra little bit, So a lot of the things you were saying sound like a 3.5, but then it is like, well, I did grow up with this. There is like that aspect to it that's so important. And, I get it. I did want to ask you, though, I forgot to ask you before what you thought I would give this.
That's true. And I also forgot. I thought that you would give it a 3.
Okay.
Which,
that's fair.
I was one off too.
That's not too bad.
I thought too high and you thought too low. So we met in the middle there.
I did want to say one last thing before we wrap up the episode. I do like the musical better. And that's where I was thinking what I would give it. I would probably give the musical a 3, like a high 3 though, because I thought it was very enjoyable. And I feel like the movie suffers a little bit because it isn't the musical. And I do think you should watch the musical. It's very good. Hey, maybe we should take a New York trip and go to Broadway and see it.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
But on that note, that's the end of the episode, I think, right?
Yeah. Goodbye.
I do want to tease next week's episode, though, because we got a little special one for you next week.
That's right.
We might have a holiday coming up pretty soon, and I don't know that necessarily our album matters with that, but I do think our movie does. So you might want to head over to our Instagram right now and see what you're supposed to watch in the next week, because it'll kind of fit into what the season is.
Exactly.
Email us at upcpod@gmail.com. I specifically would like some emails. I don't remember what I said. It's been too long, but
yeah, no one does.
I would like that, whatever it was. So if you remember, please email us. And David, if they want to see what we rated everything, where would they find that?
Well, if you want to see our ratings, in case you forgot and were too lazy to go back and listen to a previous episode, which you really should do, or you wanted to compare your scores to ours, you can check out our scores either on Letterboxd for the movies or on Raging Music for the music. And you can find all of that information linked in our link tree, which is in the description of this video, this podcast, and on our Instagram. Brandon, what can they do to help out the pod?
Rate the show, leave us a comment, write a review. If your podcast listening software application, whatever, allows you to do that, you can on Spotify, but you can leave a comment. But yeah, on Apple Podcast, you can leave a review, which is very cool. And I would hope that if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you would do that for us, because we will love you forever and ever. We have next week's episode, and then we got a crazy one for you after that. And then it's almost the end of the year, guys. And I hope you know what that means. We've kind of been alluding to it, but we'll have a very special, extremely special episode because, well, I don't know that I want to give too much away yet. We'll get there.
If you want to find out a week early, you got to go check the Instagram.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. With that, check the Instagram for next week because it'll be a good one. And we'll see you then.